welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so question number 2 for David. Now, you've probably seen part 1, and I read David's email and then answer his first question. I've decided to divide these questions into different videos because I think they are a little bit more manageable for viewers. All right, so just to catch you up on David, he has 2 Rolexes, a BLNR from 2013, that's a Batman, and a 2019 Explorer 39 millimeter. All right, he writes, how often should I get watches serviced? I'm getting conflicting information from the Rolex forum. If it's not broken, just leave it or stick to Rolex's recommendation of every 10 years. All right, so the age-old question, and a lot of ink has been spilled on the forums about this, and everybody has their own personal philosophy. I'll tell you what I think, David, and then you can make your own informed decision concerning your own pieces. Well, first you need to ask yourself, are you talking vintage pieces or contemporary pieces? Because if you're talking contemporary pieces like your pieces or this 16570 Explorer 2, Rolex can replace any of the parts in these watches. If you're talking vintage pieces, say a GMT 6542 or an Explorer 6610, Rolex, they can't replace any of the parts there. And so if you extend your service interval and parts wear down and need to be replaced, you might be in a world of hurt. You might have to source those parts, pay an arm and a leg for them, or you might just never be able to find them. So if you're talking really expensive vintage pieces, I would say err on the side of caution and don't push the service intervals every 5 years if you're wearing those pieces. And you're probably not going to be taking them to RSC anyway, because RSC has a tendency to want to change parts out. They look at integrity as new, clean. The newer the better. The more schmicko the better. Oftentimes we look at integrity as originality, and they have been known to replace dials and hands, and some people will say they'll ask you first. Well, they might ask you if it's okay if they need to, and then once you give the okay, and you have to give the okay for them to service the watch, then it's sort of up to them. And if you get back your vintage piece and the hands have been replaced or the dial, it can drastically alter the value of that watch. And so you're probably going to be taking these vintage pieces to an independent that you trust. But still, to your question, regular service intervals, because you got to make sure that you keep those parts that are pretty irreplaceable in perfect working order. All right, what about these? Well, the parts in these watches can be replaced, and so in my opinion, you can sort of extend service intervals. And look, when it comes down to it, what's better for the watch? Regular service intervals, okay? But I look at these watches as tool watches with workhorse movements, and I think that they can take it. And, yes, I'm a little bit cheap, but also I like to sort of push these watches a bit. And, the more watches that you have, the more you're dividing up wrist time. And so for that reason, you might be able to extend service intervals. But again, I think what it really comes down to with this watch and my watches and your watches are the parts can be replaced. And, a couple of replacement parts might cost during a service $100 extra, all right? Whereas a routine service, the base cost is about $750. And, if you can, I think they say on modern Rolexes every 10 years. I think on 5 digits every 5 years. Well, 5 years I think is way too soon. And I think if there's no problem, I think if it's running well and it hasn't gained time and it hasn't lost time and it's consistently plus whatever, minus whatever, then I think that's a good sign as to everything being okay in there. Parts, if you're going to push things, might need to be replaced. But the cost of those parts is going to outweigh what a service cost would at the every 5 year mark. Again, $750. after 15 years is going to be what? That's like approaching 2,000 USD. Whereas I think this could probably run for probably 15 years. Okay. People are probably cringing as I say that. But again, I think these are workhorse movements. I think it can do it. I want to see if it can do it. I like to push my watches. I want to see what it can accomplish. And, you know, in 15 years, when I do have it serviced, and I don't know that I'll wait 15 years, if parts need to be replaced, then it's going to cost me, what, $100? Not a big deal. And that other guy that's having his watch serviced every 5 years is what? He's approaching 2,000 USD. Over 2,000 USD. Yeah. So I think that's what I tend to keep in mind. Now, I have to just say that when watches are not serviced, metal grinds off and gets into the oil and can create a paste. And so that's what can damage a watch. And what's better for the watch is servicing it regularly. Okay, so if you really want to know what's better for the watch, is regular services. Services. If you want to know what's better for your pocketbook, in my opinion, I think it's stretching out service intervals. And again, we're talking modern watches that can be serviced through Rolex, and parts are easily replaceable, not that expensive. But, you know, things can happen, and rotors can get loose and scrape on the case back and scrape on the movement, and that, that metal dust can infiltrate the case. And I mean, it can wreak havoc. So you don't know what'll happen, all right? So am I willing to push my watches? Yes. I would just say that it's ultimately your decision, but yes. Hopefully that helps. Now, one thing I've got to talk about is water resistance, because when you have your watches serviced regularly, then they check the seals, they change the seals, right? And then they pressure check the watch, and Rolex will give you a 2-year warranty against water breach from a newly serviced watch. Now, if you're going to wear your watch in the water, that's something you need to think about. I think it was 2014 when I had this watch serviced, maybe 2015, and I haven't had it serviced since, but I took it to Thailand and I took it in the water. What did I do before I did that? Well, I had it pressure checked, and pressure checking is a lot cheaper. It's $100, but it just means that at that point in time, the watch during the test could withstand pressure up to its depth rating. It doesn't give any indication as to the future of that watch. I mean, you could take it swimming the very next day, experience water breach, highly unlikely, but it could happen and you would have no recourse. There's no sort of guarantee. So again, that's unlikely, and it gives you a little bit of peace of mind, but you know, you have a pressure check, and then you take it to Thailand and swim with it. Everything's going to be fine. Well, what about the next year? Do you have it pressure checked again? Is it still okay? My guess is it probably would still be okay, but again, there's no guarantee. The test just means that at that point in time, it was able to withstand the pressure. Okay, so if you want peace of mind and you're willing to pay for it, you know, you have your full overhaul, and then you'll get 2 years of worry-free about water damage to your watch. Again, I tend to want to push these and enjoy pushing them and enjoy what they can do. And so for that, from that sort of perspective, I'm a big proponent of extending service intervals. And but when it comes down to it, I mean, I just have to state that what is actually better for the watch is to have it serviced regularly. Okay, but again, what's better for your pocketbook? Stretching it out a bit, getting those parts replaced when they need it, you know, and maybe having a little bit of fun seeing how far can you go with it. Now, I will say that when you do have your watches serviced, I would let them know that you expect pretty high accuracy, all right? That's something you want to talk about with them before you have the watch serviced, because after the fact it can get a little bit awkward. I mean, I got my GMT A serial back and it was running 5+ a day. I didn't think that was good enough. I took it back and they made it right, but it would have been a little bit better if before the fact I had said, I hope when you guys are regulating the watch, you can get it to about, +5 a day, sorry, +0.5 a day, right? Because it'll let them know that you're kind of one of those guys, right? And the reason I tell you that is because if you don't and you get a watch back, and all yours I think are going to be ±2, right? Hopefully not 2, hopefully closer to 0, right? But whatever it comes back with, you're kind of stuck with it. And when this came back, it was +4, all right? +4 seconds a day. Not bad, still COSC, but I wish I had told them earlier, I want it really pretty much dead on. I'm one of those people, one of those OCD guys that actually like check my watch and that's what I expect. Because now it's running about +8. And, if it had been running +1 when I had got it back, it probably would be closer to perfect than +8. So it puts you at the start at a better place if you can let them know that you want and expect a high degree of accuracy. And that's my advice. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to service time, a lot of questions to be discussed about whether you want the watch polished and partial placed and this and that and anyway, take care. Thanks for the question, David. What are your thoughts on servicing your watches? Okay, for me, I like to push. I like to see what these tool watches can do. I like to see what these workhorse movements can do. That's just a personal thing. But again, if you're just about what's best for the watch, stick to what Rolex says. Okay, take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.